Teaching is hard, and oftentimes it isn't what happens in the classroom that makes the job difficult. It's what happens before and after school, during passing periods, at lunch, in meetings, or in our lives outside of school that challenges our ability to stick with the profession. TeacherGuard is committed to focusing on making teaching sustainable and enjoyable. We want to make the rewards of the profession seem more attainable and the challenges more bearable. Our mentorship model pairs teachers with consistent daily support from a peer educator. Through TeacherGuard's 4 sustainability principles, we will walk the challenging times with you and allow you to enjoy the wins and celebrations that come with this beautiful profession. See TeacherGuard.net for more information and to explore how you can join our community of educators today. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. All right, welcome back. Really glad to be joined today by Emma McCurry. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time this afternoon. Let's start off by just having you introduce yourself, say a little about your background, what you do and why you do it.
So my name is Emma McCurry, or Miss McCurry as my kids know me. And I teach high school physics and chemistry at Westland High School, which is a suburb of Portland, Oregon. Um, and how did I come to my position in this role? Um, I think when I was younger, I always had an interest in teaching, and my first job that wasn't an official job, but the first thing I got paid to do was to tutor my peers. I worked as a math tutor and a chemistry tutor for a few years, and honestly loved it. But I think I felt a lot of pressure to do something quote unquote better than be a teacher, which makes me really sad to think that I had that perspective for so long. So I actually went to engineering school, and I have an undergraduate degree in bioengineering. And then I was going to go to grad school for engineering. And then 3 days before that I was set to start grad school, someone asked me what I wanted to do after I graduated. And I said, I kind of want to be a high school teacher. And she looked at me kind of funny. And so I kind of realized that I maybe was not making the smartest decision to kind of continue to pursue this career path that I wasn't super excited about. And so I switched. Luckily, there was someone had dropped the education program at the same university, or Oregon State University, where I was set to go to engineering school. And so I joined the Master's of Education program, and I still feel some guilt or I don't know if guilt is the right word, but inadequacy maybe, about being just a high school teacher. And I say that with quotes around it. But I really do love my job, and I love the impact that I have on kids' lives and how I'm able to really have like relationships with the students and the people that I'm helping. Because I think there's so many jobs where you're helping people in some ways more removed from the person than we are in education. But I really like how like intimate the relationships are as a teacher, and how you get to know the kids over the course of the year. And so, yeah, I kind of ended up in physics by accident. My primary endorsement was in chemistry, and then they saw that I had the engineering undergraduate degree, and they said, "Oh, so you can teach physics?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know," but I've actually come to really love it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And so usually at this point, I ask the question that kind of kicks off the episode, which is, what are some challenges that teachers have, especially new teachers in the profession? But I'm going to veer away from that just for a second here because your response kind of resonated with me. And I do think this ultimately is related to why teachers may stay in the profession, because I was in your same boat when I was in college. I think I went in thinking, I want to be a doctor. And I never really investigated why. It's not like I knew doctors. It's not like I had ever even interned or worked at a hospital to know, like, yeah, this is the environment that I want to be in. I think to your point, it's that this is a respectable profession. It makes a lot of money. I think it'll make my parents proud. Um, and so I went through my 4 years of college and, took the MCAT, went through everything necessary to go to medical school. And then I stopped because I got to the point where somebody asked, "Well, why do you wanna be a doctor?" And I couldn't answer the question, and so I figured I could probably BS myself through some of the interviews, but, like, what's the point, right? I don't know why I wanna do this, and by that point, I was really tired of school. I didn't wanna keep going to school for another 4, 8 years. Um, and so I found teaching, but I wonder, if with both of us having similar experiences, if that's a common theme that drives people to the profession, and then I wonder, is that also maybe a reason why people don't stay in it for long if it kinda became something you maybe fell into, so to speak? So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah, I think well, I don't know if I'm directly gonna answer those questions, but I do also think it's a reason why people don't end up in the profession, which is really sad is that I think there's people that would make wonderful teachers and they feel for whatever reason in our culture in the United States, like, we value doctors, lawyers, engineers way more than we value teachers, and I think that that pushes people away from it, just because of that phrase, like, justice. I mean, I've had people, I'm flying to, Knowles, activities on the East Coast, and I've had people ask me they'll see me grading papers, and they say, "Oh, are you doing homework?" And I say, "No, I'm actually a teacher," and they say, "Oh, man, I wish I could quit my job and just be a teacher." And that phrase, "just be a teacher," I mean, it rubs me the wrong way, certainly, because 'cause I'm sure it is for you as well, because 'cause we're teachers, but, yeah, I think it's maybe, it's 'cause it's a career that is most people know a teacher. In fact, everybody knows a teacher because everybody went to school, or if they were homeschooled, then their parent is their teacher, so they see what a teacher does, but then they also don't see what a teacher does, like, behind the scenes, I think, as well. Um but I do think it's a common experience for a lot of like driven individuals who end up in the profession. I know I've had conversations with other folks, other young teachers, which I'm lucky to have other young teachers at my school right now. And it resonates with them as well. Maybe some people are a little less concerned about what others think of them than I am.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and I think of people that are considering the profession now, right? I feel like it's quickly becoming a profession that is more challenging. Well,
yeah,
I don't know if more challenging is the right word. There are different challenges than there
yes,
were 5,
yes,
10 years ago, right?
yeah,
And I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the 21-year-old who is trying to decide what to do. And if I saw what's happening in schools, the challenges with students, with AI and all that, I don't know that I would be pursuing, you know, this
yeah,
career. Um, you are relatively new to the profession, but what is it for you that said or that made you think, yeah, this is appealing, and this is what I want to do? I love that you said that, you were in college and you wanted to be a teacher. Um, what are those things that made you want that
yeah.
at this time?
I think I think it was probably being young and getting that experience of getting to sit next to somebody and help them work through, like, really reach understanding of a concept and getting to experience how rewarding that was for me as well. Um, it's almost more rewarding than when I am struggling to understand something and then understand it. Like, being able to, like, help another person along in their journey towards understanding. That sounds maybe a little cheesy, but it I love it, and I feel like I wanted to do something that would be more about than just the money, um, and I do feel like education, being a teacher really provides that in a really clear way. Even though people might feel different ways about, like, what you've achieved as a teacher, everybody is like, "Wow, like, thank you for being a teacher." So, I think, again, that sounds like I'm just mostly doing things for what other people think of me, but yeah, and I think talking, for example, to like, I have friends who are in med school or, who work maybe a job where like nurse a friend one of my best friends is a nurse, and she likes the interaction with people, but it's different as a teacher that you get to build this relationship with students for 1 year, 2 years, that I sometimes even 4 years as a high school teacher, um, and really be a mentor for them, for those the students in a lot of ways. Um, yeah, and it's just so rewarding. It's so rewarding to get to see what the kids are doing, with their lives, where they're gonna go to college. I mean, yeah, again, I've only been in the profession for a few years, but it's just so cool to be a little part of that journey for the students. Yeah, and I should have mentioned I also coach. Um, I coach cross country and track and field, and so that aspect alongside of it too, to get to kinda, like, nurture and mentor the whole person, well, academic and athletic at least, um, is is super rewarding for me. So, yeah, and I think there's an element too of, like, I feel like I was blessed to have really good teachers as a student, and so kind of being able to pay it forward in that way, also feels really meaningful to me.
You have some pretty deep answers to why you're in the profession, and I think that's great. And I'm sure that when things get tough, it's those anchors that ultimately remind you of why you're in the profession, and why you want to stay in it. So um, going back to what I was mentioning earlier, in your experience in your first few years in education, uh, what are some of those challenges that you have encountered, or maybe that you have seen similar teachers in their first year or so um, run into, that you're like, man, like this almost made me want to leave,
Yeah,
or this almost made this other person that I know want to leave?
yeah,
What might those be?
absolutely, yeah. I think I mentioned a little bit, I was in the experience of the year that I was hired, there were actually 2 other science teachers who were hired at my school who were also first year teachers. So, I think that was huge for me to have those people to, like, kinda have be able to maybe, express complaints towards. But I think for myself and for them as well, the number one thing was just feeling so completely unprepared for every single class. Like, I'm a procrastinator, and so I'm not sure that this is to the same extent that maybe the other 2 teachers had, but I mean, I would finish the school day and then I would go to practice, and it would be 5:30 PM, and I needed to be at work at 7:30 in the morning, and I had absolutely no clue what I was gonna teach in class. And and the school that I work at is there's pros and cons of this. It's very we don't have a curriculum. We use the NGSS standards for science, and that's all that we are given. Like, the school says, "Okay, you're teaching these standards," and that's it. And thankfully, the department is pretty collaborative, and they'll share their resources with you. But it was very much like, I get to do literally whatever I want in my classroom, and nobody would tell me that I was what I should do or if I was doing anything wrong, which again, pros and cons because you're getting a drastically different experience, like in chemistry class or physics class, depending on who your teacher is. Um, it's nice that I can be more creative now, and I'm not restricted by like a specific curriculum. Um, but at the same time, that first year, and even the first time that I teach a class is just so totally, utterly overwhelming. And like this year, I taught AP Physics 1 for the first time, which I have enjoyed teaching the AP classes because there's the course and exam description which says, "Hey, here are all the things that they need to know." So that's a little bit more structure. But I mean, it's still I'm not exactly the most efficient person in the world, so I'll spend 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours making a lesson. And I know that there's definitely more efficient ways to do it, and I have improved over the last few years. But that's a long-winded answer to say the time requirements, in my experience, for teaching a class, especially for the first time, are massive, and you're not paid for any of it. And I mean, you're salaried, but work has to be well beyond contract hours. Um, and I think mine is a little bit extreme, but I also do know that the 2 other teachers that started with me also experienced something similar. Um, and then also through our Knowles cohort as well. I would say probably about half of us felt similar to just like, I'm so overwhelmed. Like, I don't know what's going on right now. Yeah.
And so going back to, like, again, those anchors that we mentioned earlier for why you're in the profession, I have to imagine that those are strong enough for you to be thinking,
Yeah.
"Yeah, the time is worth it," right?
Yes.
Because clearly, if you break it down to an hourly pay for what teachers make compared to the amount of work that goes into it, both for good teachers who lesson plan and who thoroughly, think about the students for every lesson and assessment and all that, it's, uh, probably less than minimum wage in depending on where you are, right? And so is it that, or are there other things that make those challenges that you just brought up surmountable for you? Is it just the love that you have for like you said, nurturing others, in various aspects of their lives? Are there other things that make you want to, at 5:30 p.m. when you're exhausted, put in the work to be ready for the next morning?
Yeah. I think I think that the anchors that I mentioned before definitely provide the drive. I do think that I've had to, over time, learn that I do need some downtime. And so I feel I'm glad that I teach at a school where we do block scheduling, so it's A days and B days. And I was also luckily in a position where I had physics and chemistry. Those were the classes I taught my first year, and they were both on A days. And so then on B days, I kind of had a little bit of respite because I was just repeating the same lessons that I had done the day before. And so I would try to make sure that I had some hours on the days before B days that I was doing something that wasn't on my computer.
Got it.
Whether
Okay.
that was, like, just being with family or reading a book or watching a TV show or something like that. I think that that's helped me have a little bit more stamina for the days that I I do need to prep those lessons at 5:30 PM. Um, and then, yeah, I can't it's hard to say exactly what drives me to want to be a good teacher, but I do kinda also just have this, like, I want to be the best teacher that I can be, and I think it's something about this profession that I'm definitely a perfectionist, and this is a profession where perfection is not really achievable. Um, and so I think that there's an aspect of it too that's like, I need to do what I can now because I know it's not gonna be perfect. And I know I'm gonna wanna improve it in the future, and so I need to at least get my baseline up to something that's good enough that I can improve on it, and I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but yeah, it's like low bar, high ceiling type thing for the profession, and I'm kinda motivated to see, like, how high I can get my bar.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And there's maturity in that, right? Because I do think that a lot of people do chase that perfect lesson, that perfect day teaching all the time. And when they don't hit it, which is impossible, you may hit a really great day every once in a while or a really great lesson, but you're not going to consistently walk away from your school day thinking like, here we go, perfection again, you know? And so for folks that maybe enter the profession needing that kind of validation of feeling like you were perfect, you were commended today, whatever, uh, this is not the right job for that
no.
because this is a job where you need quite the opposite of that. You need a lot of resilience. You need a lot of, all right, we're chasing improvement. We're chasing getting a little better every day. And hopefully, if you pile up enough of those good days over the course of years, you've done some great things. And more importantly, you've stayed in the
Yeah.
profession. You can't get better if you leave, right? If some people, I think, go too hard for a year, for 2 years, you're exhausted and now you're out. And now students lost out on a
Mhm.
28 years of a career that you could have had potentially continuing to support them had you just taken it a little slower, had you given
Mhm.
yourself a little more grace. You
Absolutely.
mentioned the community that you have, right, at your school, that it's pretty collaborative. Um, do you find that that is a source of sustainability for you and your peers, especially those who are younger in the profession?
Absolutely, yeah, I would say I'm super lucky that I have teachers that are experienced and similarly understand that there is no perfect lesson, and that will support us younger teachers, like, in any way they can, and also encourage us to remember that it's okay when we fail. So I think that that has been hugely important, and just really the knowledge that whatever I need help with, I can come to them even if it's 5 minutes before class starts, and they are going to do what they can to help me out. Um, yeah, it's huge. And I can't imagine being able to, like, have decreasing stress levels over the last few years without those teachers,
Mhm.
without their support. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that was really one of the pillars for, the way that the TeacherGuard mentorship program was set up, this idea of I've seen many coaching programs where you meet with someone once a month, once every 2 weeks or so, and that's great. Any conversation I think you have about your practice with anybody, however frequent, is phenomenal. But what I always found when I had coaching or mentorship from someone, inevitably, I might walk away with a great session, really great conversation, really inspired on a Monday, and then Wednesday I had a fight in my classroom. And now I'm
Yeah.
like really upset, that my class that I had planned didn't go well, but I'm not talking to that mentor again for another 2 weeks. And so that to me it's almost like, whatever gains happened can during a good session, coaching session, could quickly disappear,
Mhm.
because school just comes at you fast. And as you were talking earlier about, it's hard to pinpoint what keeps you in it sometimes. I think sometimes it's a lack of time to think because the time just moves really fast, right? I can't believe
Yeah.
it's already May.
Yes.
And so by the time you sit to reflect, the school year's already done and you're getting ready to start a new one. So the way that this mentorship program is set up, it's you have a weekly conversation with someone, but then you also share a Google document where you're interacting with each other every night or every morning. And so the mentor is committed to going in and responding to whatever the coachee, or the mentee is typing in. And so what I envisioned as I was creating that is there were times at night. I was never a big fan of journaling, as a teacher, just because I felt like is really messed up. I felt like it was a waste of time, right? Like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
To your
Yeah.
point, I got home late. I kind of just want to watch TV and go to bed. I never thought of the value of taking stuff out of your mind and putting it on a piece of paper. And so what this then does is to extend that to not only are you putting your thoughts on a piece of
Mm.
paper so that you can rest your head at night, hopefully without having this anymore in your head for at least a moment, but when you wake up the next morning, you're going to get a response to some of those things. And it might be feedback that then walks you into your day with a little less anxiety. Um, and so, in thinking about the structure of that program, do you feel like some of those challenges that surface for new teachers, could be remedied by that kind of daily interaction? While it may not be a phone call or in person every single day, it is some kind of interaction with somebody who is not judging you, who is not necessarily your own colleague or supervisor, um, but essentially almost like a reflective mirror.
Absolutely. I do think that's a really cool idea. I really like the idea of it being, I mean, the word mentor, for me, when I hear that word, it implies, "Oh, this person is gonna help me get better." But I really like the idea of somebody who also is just like a friend, basically, or
Mhm.
someone who's there to reassure you that, well, hopefully they actually are doing a good job, but I'm sure most most people are, that you are doing a good job, and that there are there's only so much that you can do, um, so such that you're not negatively impacting your own health, physical or mental. Um, yeah, and taking away the evaluation piece of it. I mean, I know this is a huge conversation in education, in general, but having somebody that isn't going to be evaluating you, it feels very freeing. Yeah, and I think that's why having, the supportive, more experienced teachers at my school, as well as, like, the peers that are my age, that are at my same level of, experience, is huge because I know I can complain to them and they can complain to me, and we can reason through things together, but also know that I'm not going to be like, my principal isn't going to hear about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a
Yeah.
really cool model.
Well, and I think it forces you to do something that oftentimes we don't think we need to do, right? I think, again, in creating this, I thought of my own experience and how many times I would finish my day, and whether it was a loved one, a friend, a colleague, somebody else, "How's your day?" And be like, "Oh, it was great,"
Yeah.
or "It was fine." You know, and the main reason why I didn't want to go into more detail is because if it wasn't such a great day, I didn't really want to relive it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, it's over. You know, I'm moving on to the next day. And then I would randomly find myself talking about it sometimes in conversations like, "Oh, this happened the other day and you know, it sucked and whatever." And I thought, why? Like, why? It's almost like enough pressure builds up to where that
Right.
stuff comes out anyway. And for a lot of our teachers, a danger could be, or a lot of our newer teachers, when that stuff comes out at the wrong moment in a staff meeting when you finally had enough and then you blow up, right? And you have to say something because you've just been channeling all of this negativity that's been happening. Or with your students where you're absolutely fed up and you blow up in front of them because they won't be quiet long enough for you to teach or something like that. And so it's almost like what we all need is structured opportunity and time to relieve some of that pressure on a daily basis and avoid the blowups that could eventually lead to us just abandoning the profession
Really. Yeah.
entirely.
And I think it was as you were speaking about that too, it made me think of our earlier conversation about how like maybe teaching isn't as respected as as a career in our culture. And I think that having like if you have a family member who's a teacher, then they get it. But having somebody that also gets it, because sometimes, I mean, I've had experiences with my friends where I'm maybe trying to explain something that really frustrated me at work, and I think they just don't get it because teaching is an easy career. Like, that's something I wish I could quit my job and just be a teacher, like, having somebody who does understand the the frustrations and the pressure and sometimes how difficult it can be, and you don't have to try to almost sell it to them, sell how hard it is, is very important. And I often think about I remember when I don't know why this stuck with me so much, but I was a high school student, and one of my teachers said something about really hating being in the staff room because teachers were always talking bad about students. And so anytime I'm speaking with like a colleague or just anybody about maybe frustrations from the day, that like rings in the back of my head, and I'm like, oh, am I just being a complaining teacher that's complaining about my students? But I do think it's important to be able to, like you said, relieve some of that pressure. So I don't know if it's like, yeah, where the line is between, because I think, and maybe part of it is do we have like a growth mindset about our students? Like, we believe our students can improve, and also they were really hard today versus my students are horrible, like, they're always gonna be like this, like, there's the kind of a difference between those 2 things. Um, yeah, that's just another thought that I had.
Well, and those two things can both be true, right? And true at the same time. It is possible that we genuinely believe that our students could grow in all of their capacities because by literal definition of their development, they are. Every day they are new people, essentially, because they're developing, right? So yes, that's true. Two, it can also be true that they were real jerks today and that it was really hard for me to get my point across and all that. And that's okay for that to be true as well. And to your point about when sharing that, you know, to a degree, somebody who's not in the field of education will understand. To a degree, they may also think we're whining, right? And to be clear, we may be, and that's also okay, because if we don't whine about the things that annoy us within the profession in a safe environment where it's okay to do that, then we're just bottling all that. And the next time something happens that's not even as bad as whatever the previous things were, we're going to overreact. And when an administrator, when a colleague, when a student sees us in that moment of overreaction, they're not taking into consideration everything that happened before. Their immediate reaction is, whoa, like this person is out of control.
Right.
Right. And so it's all those little things that I think um, can really make or break good teachers. And their ability to stay in the profession because the really good ones are oftentimes going to be the ones who are hardest on themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, like we were talking about earlier with that chasing perfection, um, they're gonna beat themselves up every day if they don't achieve it. So I think what we're saying here is maybe The key to staying in the profession is to pursue mediocrity or or something
I
like
think
that.
it's sometimes it has to be that way. Because, yeah, if it's 8:30, 9 o'clock, and you gotta be up at 6 the next morning and you have an okay enough plan, that's okay. And
Mhm,
and the thing that I've kind of also I mean, especially being new in the profession is the things that I think are perfect or lesson that I'm like, "Yeah, this is a great lesson." It sometimes doesn't hit. And sometimes those mediocre lessons are the ones that hit the most with the kids, and they actually learn more. And maybe sometimes it's 'cause if I am I might be trying to overplan, um, or, like, over scaffold, and then
mhm.
I'm doing some of the cognitive work for them. Um, and so, yeah. And I think also the longer that more experience that I've had planning lessons, I kinda just have a little bit of a better idea of, like, what will work and will what what is good enough or what is mediocre enough for, like, that
Right.
day.
Yeah.
It's, like, take some of the stress off of, like, kinda the existential, like, dread of, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do tomorrow." It's like, "Actually, I am okay. It's gonna be okay. The kids are gonna be okay. They are resilient." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's gonna come out the way it comes out, and that's okay. We're gonna get another shot at it the next day, right? That's the key part, that we come back, that we keep coming back the next day. And to your point, I think I'm of a similar mindset. Sometimes when things don't go the way that I wanted them to, the more upset that I get is when I know it's something that I put in a lot of time for. That I'm like, "Oh, man, I really thought a lot about it, this project or this lesson, and I'm really upset at, the students' reaction to it, or my colleagues if I thought of a cool proposal for a department meeting or whatever, and I spent hours crafting it, and then they were like, 'Oh, yeah, like, maybe we look at that next semester.'" I was like, "What the heck?" And so now I'm thinking they don't care, whatever, I'm not gonna try anymore. And if we let those thoughts kinda get ahead of us, we discourage future innovation just because in the moment we thought, the uh, reaction to what we wanted, or to what we produced, we were evaluating it a certain way and it didn't land that way. And so we can't, it's almost like we have to contain our expectations with some of these things, um, in order to be able to sustain. So keeping all that in mind, Emma, as we close up here on our time, I always finish up these conversations, especially with newer teachers, by asking if you were to be stuck in a room with a teacher right now who is finishing up their first, second school year, and they're thinking like, I'm done with the profession. I'm thinking of maybe taking a year off. I'm thinking of maybe exploring something else. What are one or two sentences that you would share with that teacher to keep sustainability in mind?
Mm. I don't want to make it seem like the first year is always the worst, just because I think that can scare some new teachers going into it, but I would say it gets better. Um, you're doing an amazing job. Yeah, I think those would be the first 2 things that I would say.
And
Yeah.
that first point you bring up is it has to be true if you stay with it, right? It does get better because if it didn't get better, then people would be leaving later in their careers. There has to be some reason that it gets better. I think the reason for why it gets better is what's important here. Does it get better? Does the experience get better because you become complacent and you kind of
Mm.
over time just kick back a little, uh, maybe get a little. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think you get more confident. Yeah, that's I know, cause it does someone actually asked me literally just a few hours ago, "Oh, like, are there some teachers who are on autopilot?" And I said, "Well, I think maybe, but it's not so much autopilot so much as they're competent and they know what they're doing and they're experienced teachers and they have a confidence that this did less it's going to work out, whether that be that day or that be in the long term. And that doesn't mean that they don't care. Um, yeah, but yeah, I mean, hopefully you're paid more for a reason. Like you know how to put together a lesson and you know what teacher moves are really gonna help that student, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think the longer you're in it, the less you care about the little things that maybe bugged you at the beginning,
Yeah,
right? The less you care about somebody comes and observes me, it's not the end of the world if it's not a great lesson that day. There will be others that they can come observe. If somebody gives me a weird eye in the lunchroom, I've been here 10 years.
yeah,
We are in high school, but we're not in high school
yeah,
anymore to be dealing with that kind of stuff. So I think to your point, it's a combination of a little everything. You can enter that autopilot mode in terms of some of the nuances of teaching that may have been
yeah,
annoying earlier on. As long as you maintain that innovative spirit with always trying to do what's best for kids. So,
absolutely.
um, it does get better for sure. Well, Emma, I really appreciate again the time that you gave me here today. Really enjoyed our conversation. Would love to have you back in the future if you have time. And thank you for the work you're doing in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much. I mean, again, I mentioned I don't feel adequate to be, like, on a podcast and sharing my ideas, but I really appreciate you, like, pushing me to do that, and it was a great conversation, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it and found it helpful to your teaching journey, please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube or through your favorite podcast platform. We also appreciate any and all reviews or comments you leave. Thank you for joining us today and tune in next week for our next episode.